The night began like any other in Alara's small village, quiet, soft, wrapped in the calm silence of nature. Lanterns glowed warm in the windows, children laughed outside, and the air smelled of herbs drying on ropes above doorways. No one expected the world to change before sunrise. No one expected the sky to turn gold and red with a fire that did not belong to the moon or the sun. Alara stood at the edge of the fields, gathering wildflowers for her grandmother, when she felt a strange shiver running across her arms, as if invisible hands were brushing against her skin. The wind grew dry, the air grew warm, and far in the distance, she heard something low, like the rumble of a storm. But it was not thunder. It was footsteps, hundreds of them, and leading them was a presence she had only heard about in whispers. The Alpha King, Calum, ruler of the Northern Dominion, feared for his power, respected for his strength, and burdened by a curse passed down through a long line of kings. Alara turned toward the village, her heart tight. Shadows moved between the trees, shapes larger than men, cloaked riders on tall, dark horses. Torches glowed like scattered suns in the night. She ran. Her feet flew over the soil, her breath breaking with fear and confusion. She did not understand. Her village held no soldiers, no treasures, no reason for a king to appear at its borders. They were quiet people, living quiet lives. They harmed no one. But as she reached the first wooden gate, she saw something that cut through her thoughts entirely. The Alpha King himself rode at the front, tall and straight in his dark armor, a heavy cloak flowing behind him, like a piece of the night sky. His face was carved with calm authority, his eyes sharp and cold like winter stars. Even from a distance, his presence felt powerful, too powerful for a small place like hers. Alara froze as he stopped his horse just steps away from her. His gaze locked onto her the way a storm might lock onto the tallest tree, certain, intense, unblinking. It felt as though he already knew who she was. "Alara," he said, his voice low and steady, as if he had practiced her name many times before. "Step back." Step back? For what? Why did he know her name? She opened her mouth to speak, but before she could form a word, a shift of energy rolled across the air. Ancient, strange, and bright. Something deep inside her chest warmed, almost glowing, as if a hidden light had awakened. She had felt it once before, as a child, but never knew what it meant. The Alpha King noticed. His eyes widened not with fear, but with recognition. "So it is true," he whispered. "Moonfire lives in you. Moonfire. A word spoken only in legends. A gift older than the throne itself. A power that no one should have." She shook her head. "I don't understand." "You do not need to," he said, though his voice softened, almost regretful. "But you will." A royal soldier rode up beside him. "Your Majesty," he said carefully. "The elders are gathered. They refuse to leave their homes." Calum closed his eyes, as if the news pulled an old pain through him. "Then bring them to the center. I will speak to them myself. The first them one in one. We have the another." Alara watched the exchange with rising panic. "Why are you here? What do you want from us?" Calum looked at her once more, and for the first time, she saw a shadow of sorrow hidden behind his cold gaze. "I wish it had not been you," he said softly. Before she could demand an answer, he signaled his soldiers, and the entire village was gathered under the open sky. Elders stood in a line, frightened but proud. Families huddled together, whispering prayers. Children clung to their mothers' arms. A strange tension spread through the air, thick and heavy. Calum dismounted from his horse and stepped forward. "Listen well," he said, his voice carrying over the crowd like a steady drumbeat. "I have come because of a prophecy spoken long before I was born. A prophecy that warns of a moon-born soul who would rise from this village to end the northern bloodline." Soft murmurs filled the air. Alara stared at him, shock and disbelief swirling inside her. The Alpha King raised a hand. silencing the whispers. "I do not wish harm," he continued. "But I must prevent the prophecy from being fulfilled. My kingdom is fragile. My curse grows stronger each moon. I cannot allow another burden to rise against it." Elara stepped forward despite her trembling legs. "We are ordinary people. No one here threatens you." His eyes found hers again. "You do." Her breath caught. The king's expression tightened, full of conflict, as if he hated the truth even as he spoke it. "Elara," he said quietly, "you carry moonfire. It chose you. And that means you are the one the prophecy speaks of." "But I do not know how to use any magic," she argued, her voice breaking. "I don't even want it." "It does not matter what you want," he replied. "Moonfire wakes when the world is ready for change." A soft glow pulsed from Elara's palms before she could hide them. It was faint, gentle, almost like silver starlight. But Caleb reacted instantly, stepping closer. "So it begins," he murmured. Fear washed over her. She backed away. "Please, don't take me." His jaw tightened. "I must," he said. "You cannot remain here. The prophecy will draw others. If I leave you unguarded, someone else will find you someone far less merciful." Elara stared at him, tears gathering in her eyes. "My home is here. My people are here." He looked away, unable to meet her gaze for a moment. "I know," he whispered. "And I am sorry." Just then, the air trembled, another wave of invisible warmth sweeping across the village. The soldiers shifted nervously, looking around. Even the horses stirred restlessly. Elara felt the mark of moonfire inside her stirring again, glowing stronger as if something ancient was awakening in her heart. Caleb saw it. And what he did next changed everything. He reached out and pressed his palm gently against her forearm. The touch was light, respectful, careful. And yet the moment his skin met hers, a spark erupted, soft white fire twirling around both of them like threads of light. Elara gasped. Caleb inhaled sharply. The moonfire flowed, not burning, not harming, but binding. A mark appeared on her skin, silver, shaped like a small crescent flame. A symbol older than any crown. The soldiers murmured in shock. Even Caleb stepped back, staring at the mark with disbelief. "I did not choose this," he said under his breath. "The magic chose for me." Elara held her marked arm close to her chest. She felt no pain, only a deep pull, a strange link between her and the Alpha King like a thread tying their souls. "What does it mean?" she asked, voice trembling. Caleb looked at her with a mixture of awe and dread. "It means," he said quietly, "that our fates are now one." Her heart pounded. "But I never agreed." "Neither did I," he said gently, almost sadly. "But magic does not wait for agreement. It decides. And it has decided on us." The villagers stood in stunned silence, watching the impossible happen. Elara took a step back, breath unsteady. "So what now? What happens to me?" Caleb looked at her as though every answer hurt him. "You will come with me," he said, voice steady but heavy. "I will protect you, train you, and find a way to stop the prophecy without harming you." His tone softened, low enough that only she could hear. "I do not want to be your enemy, Elara. I want to find another path." But she shook her head, tears slipping down her cheeks as she looked around at her home, her people, her life. "You took everything," she whispered. "And now you take me too." Caleb lowered his eyes, guilt shadowing his expression. "I know," he said, "and I will spend the rest of my days making it right." He held out his hand. Elara did not take it, but the moonfire mark warmed on her arm, pulling her reluctantly toward the fate neither of them could refuse. As the Alpha King guided her toward his horse, the wind stirred the ashes beneath her feet. The mark on her skin glowed brighter, and an old voice whispered inside her mind, "This is only the beginning." Ending hook. As Caleb rode away with Elara under the silent sky, She felt the moonfire inside her flare, not with fear, but with something far more dangerous. Power awakening. Power strong enough to challenge a king. The journey to the Alpha King's palace took 3 long days, but to Alara, it felt like a single stretched moment. A moment she could not escape. Every hour carried the same heavy questions, the same fear, the same strange pull of the silver mark on her arm. The mark glowed softly whenever Calum was near, and even though she tried to ignore it, she could not. It warmed her skin like a quiet heartbeat, as if whispering that their fates were now tied. She hated it. She feared it. And yet, some part of her felt oddly calm whenever the mark pulsed. Calum rode ahead most of the time, silent and unreadable. His dark cloak billowed behind him like a shadow carried by the wind. His soldiers followed closely, but none spoke unless spoken to. They seemed to fear disturbing the king's thoughts. Sometimes Calum would glance back at Alara, checking if she was keeping up. But he never said more than a simple, "Are you well?" or, "We will stop soon." His voice held no anger, no cruelty, only a heavy depth, like he was walking through a storm inside his own heart. Alara answered him with short nods. She refused to offer more. On the 3rd evening, the forest finally opened to reveal his kingdom, a wide land that stretched beyond the horizon. In the distance, the palace rose from the ground like a mountain of black stone. Tall towers pierced the sky, glowing faintly under the moonlight. It looked grand, ancient, and powerful, but also lonely. Alara felt the mark on her arm warm again, reacting to the sight of the Alpha King's home. Calum noticed her gaze. "This place will not harm you," he said softly. She looked away. "It already feels like it is." He said nothing after that. The palace gates opened with a deep echo. Servants hurried out, bowing low as the Alpha King entered. Their eyes widened slightly when they saw Alara beside him, but none dared to speak her name. Now, they simply looked at her as though she was a secret the world wasn't ready to hear. Calum led her through the grand hallway, tall pillars carved with symbols of wolves, moons, and ancient runes. Silver torches lit the path, casting long shadows across the marble floor. The air smelled of old magic and winter stone. Alara walked quietly, her steps echoing behind the king's. "This place was built by the first rulers of the north," Calum said, his voice soft, as if he rarely spoke of the palace's history. Every stone was placed under the moon. They believed light could guide power. "And does it?" Alara asked before she could stop herself. Calum looked up at a glowing crystal hanging from the ceiling. "Sometimes," he said, "and sometimes it only shows what we do not want to face." For a brief moment, he seemed almost human, tired, thoughtful, carrying a weight no crown could hide. Alara quickly reminded herself that this man had stepped into her village with soldiers at his back. No sadness could erase that truth. They reached a smaller chamber, warm with candlelight. Calum stopped and gestured toward it. "This room will be yours," he said. "You will be safe here." Alara stepped inside cautiously. The room was simple but elegant. Soft blankets, carved wooden shelves, and a window overlooking the moonlit lake behind the palace. It was peaceful, a strange kindness she did not expect. She looked back at Calum. "Why are you trying to be gentle with me?" He met her eyes, and for a moment, his expression softened. "Because I owe you more than you know," he said. "And because your magic deserves respect." She swallowed. "What magic? I do not understand it." "You will," he said, "and I will help you learn." His tone held no force, only calm certainty. But Alara shook her head. "I do not want this life. I want to return home." A shadow crossed his face. "Your home is not safe anymore." "Because of you," she whispered. Calum lowered his eyes, guilt flickering across his features like a passing cloud. "One day, You will understand why I acted the way I did. Alara turned away from him. Understanding is not forgiveness. I do not ask for forgiveness, he said gently. Only time. He left her alone after that, closing the door behind him with a quiet click. That night, Alara could not sleep. The moonfire in her arm pulsed lightly under her skin, soft as a heartbeat, but warm enough to keep her awake. She watched the moon through the window, trying to calm her thoughts. But each one burned brighter than the last. Why her? Why this magic? Why this king? She pressed her palm against the mark, hoping it would dim, but instead, it glowed brighter. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Alara, a woman's voice called from outside. Alara stood carefully and opened the door a small amount. A tall woman with silver hair and kind eyes smiled at her. She wore a soft robe embroidered with moon symbols, and her aura felt calming, almost protective. My name is Saris, the woman said. I am the palace priestess. May I come in? Alara hesitated, then nodded. Saris entered with quiet steps, her eyes warm but curious, as she studied the silver mark on Alara's arm. So it is true, she whispered. The moonfire chose a bearer after so many generations. Alara frowned. I do not know what that means. Saris gently touched her hand, examining the mark without causing any discomfort. This is ancient magic, she explained. Magic that appears only when the world is about to change. It links itself to a soul that can guide, balance, or disturb it. Alara's heart tightened. And it chose me? Why? That is something only the magic itself knows, Saris said. But I can tell you this. Moonfire does not choose lightly. It only awakens in those with strong spirits. Alara felt a pang in her chest. I do not feel strong. Strength is not loud, Saris replied gently. Sometimes it is simply surviving. Sometimes it is simply feeling deeply. Alara looked down. What about the king? Why does the mark connect me to him? Saris's expression softened. Because his own curse responds to moonfire. You are tied together now not by chains, but by fate. Alara sighed. He says he wants to protect me, but he is the reason my life changed. Saris nodded slowly. Yes, and he carries that burden. The king is not heartless, Alara. He is simply afraid of losing control of the curse that grows inside him. Alara looked up, startled. He never told me the details. He rarely tells anyone, Saris said. But his curse is old and heavy. At times, it pushes him toward decisions he does not want. Alara lowered her voice. Will he ever be free from it? Saris smiled softly. Perhaps, if the moonfire bearer chooses to help him. Alara stepped back slightly. Help him? Why would I? He changed my world. Saris touched her shoulder gently. Because sometimes destiny brings two souls together not to hurt each other, but to heal what neither could heal alone. Alara felt her heartbeat quicken not with fear, but with something deeper she could not name. Something connected to the mark, glowing on her arm. Before Saris left, she said one final thing. Do not fear the moonfire. It will show you the truth when the time comes. Days passed. Alara explored the palace slowly, always followed by soft whispers from the servants who had never seen someone marked by moonfire. She spent hours by the lake, staring at the reflection of her glowing mark in the water. She listened to Saris's teachings about ancient magic, destiny, and the balance of power, and she watched Calum. He spent most of his time in the council chamber, speaking with advisors, studying old scrolls, and struggling with the curse inside him. Sometimes his hand would tremble. Sometimes he would pause mid-sentence, as if fighting something unseen. Yet whenever he looked at Alara, even from a distance, he seemed calmer. She hated that she noticed. One evening, while she stood in the courtyard watching the moon rise, Calum approached her quietly. Alara, he said, stopping a respectful distance away. There is something I must show you. She hesitated but followed him. He led her through a hidden hallway behind the throne room. At the end of it was a chamber filled with ancient carvings, glowing crystals, and a single stone tablet covered in moon symbols. This, Calum said softly, is the prophecy that shaped my life. Elara stepped closer. The carved words glowed faintly under the moonlight coming through the ceiling. When Moonfire awakens, the Alpha King shall face his shadow. Through the light he fears, his soul may rise or fall. Elara felt a chill. So the prophecy is about you, not just me. Calum nodded slowly. Yes, and that is why the mark appeared. You are the light the prophecy speaks of. Elara stared at him, stunned. He held her gaze, his eyes softer than she had ever seen them. I know I broke your trust, he said quietly, but I promise you, Elara, I will find a way to let you choose your own path. Her mark glowed brighter. Her heart did too. But before she could speak, the crystals in the room flickered a sign of disturbed magic. Calum's eyes darkened with concern. Something is awakening in the kingdom, he murmured. Something that responds to your moonfire. Elara stepped back. What does that mean? What? He turned toward the doorway, his voice low and steady. It means our true challenges are only beginning. Ending hook. As the shadows in the chamber deepened, Elara felt her mark pulse with a sudden burst of energy, as if warning her that the fate she feared was now racing toward her. For the next several days, the palace changed. It did not happen loudly or suddenly. It happened in quiet signs, whispers in the halls, flickers in the torches, ripples in the lake's reflection at night. Something unseen had awakened, just as Calum had feared, and Elara felt it before anyone else. The moonfire in her arm grew warmer each morning. Sometimes it glowed even when she was calm. Sometimes it pulsed, as if calling to something far away. She tried hiding it beneath her sleeves, but the light was persistent, as if it wanted to speak. Ceres, the priestess, watched her with careful eyes. The moonfire feels change coming, she explained gently. You must listen. But Elara didn't know how to listen to magic. She barely understood it. She barely understood herself anymore. And Calum, he watched her too. Not in a possessive way, not in fear, but in a quiet, thoughtful way, as if she was the answer to a question he had carried since childhood. One evening, the king invited Elara to the highest terrace of the palace. The sky was soft and deep blue, sprinkled with early stars. A gentle wind brushed across the stone, lifting strands of her hair. Calum stood near the edge, his cloak flowing behind him. For the first time, he did not look like a king. He looked like a man trying to understand a world slipping out of his control. Elara, he said softly, turning toward her. The mark on your arm. It has been glowing more strongly, hasn't it? She hesitated. Yes. Has it hurt you? No, she said honestly. It only pulls, like it wants something. He studied her with concern. Moonfire never acts without reason. Something must be near. Something connected to you. Elara wrapped her arms around herself. I do not want more unknown things. I want answers. I want peace. Peace, he repeated quietly, gazing at the night sky. I have wanted that my whole life. He rarely spoke like this. His words usually carried command. But now, they carried emotion, a soft, heavy truth. Elara stepped closer, curiosity pushing through her fear. Calum, your curse, what does it do? He closed his eyes. It takes away my control. It pushes ancient shadows into my mind. It tells me to act out of fear, instead of wisdom. Elara's breath caught. Is that why you came to my village? Because of the curse? He opened his eyes again. They were full of guilt. Yes. The prophecy frightened me. And when the curse grows stronger, Fear becomes louder. She swallowed. But you regret it. Every day, he whispered. The wind carried silence between them, a gentle, fragile silence. Ilara, he said, his voice low and steady. If I could change the past, I would. But all I can do now is protect what remains. She looked at him long and hard. For the first time, she saw the weight he carried, the struggle, the sorrow, the loneliness the crown forced upon him. And she also saw something strange. The moonfire mark glowed faintly brighter when he spoke the truth, as if it recognized sincerity. That night, Ilara could not sleep. Her thoughts circled her like restless wings, whispering doubts and questions. She stepped onto her balcony, letting the cold air calm her. The moon reflected on the lake surface, smooth as glass. She lifted her arm, watching the silver mark glow under the moonlight. If you want to guide me, she whispered to the mark, at least show me what you want. But the light only pulsed softly. A soft knock sounded behind her. Ilara? Calem's voice asked. She turned, startled. So should you, he replied gently. But you look troubled. She didn't answer. She wasn't sure she could. Calem stepped onto the balcony, keeping a respectful distance. He leaned lightly on the railing, gazing at the moon. When the curse started in my bloodline, he said softly. It was meant to protect the kingdom. But over time, the magic changed. It became harder to control. It began to separate kings from the people they wished to protect. Ilara listened carefully. He spoke, as if this was the first time he had ever shared these thoughts. My father struggled with it, he continued. And I watched it take away his peace. I swore I would be stronger than him. I swore I would never let the curse decide my fate. He paused, sadness brushing over his expression. But when I learned about the prophecy, I forgot my promise. I let fear guide me. Ilara slowly stepped closer. Why tell me this? Calem met her eyes, deep and sincere. Because you deserve to know the truth. You deserve honesty. And because your presence, your magic calms the curse in ways I cannot understand. Ilara's heart softened despite herself. She did not want to trust him. But the mark warmed as if urging her to look deeper. I don't know what you expect from me, she whispered. I expect nothing, he replied. I only hope you will let me stand beside you until we understand the prophecy together. His voice held no demand. Only hope. Only quiet respect. Ilara looked at the moon again. I will try, she said finally. When she looked back at him, the moonlight reflected in his eyes like a hidden flame. The next morning began peacefully until the palace bells rang, deep and urgent. Ilara rushed to the balcony just as Calem stepped into the courtyard below, speaking to his guards. His posture was tense. She hurried downstairs. Calem, what is happening? He turned to her, his expression serious. Something crossed the border last night. Something that reacts to moonfire. Her heart jumped. Something dangerous? We do not know yet, he said. But it is searching for the source of magic in this palace. That means it is searching for you. Ilara felt the mark flare with warm light. She covered it quickly. You will stay close to me, Calem said firmly, until we know what this force wants. She wanted to argue. She wanted to demand answers. But she could see the worry in his eyes. Worry, not control. So she nodded. Later that day, Saris led Ilara to the old library, where scrolls about moonfire were kept. Calem joined them, his presence calm but alert. Saris unrolled an ancient scroll. The ink shimmered faintly. Moonfire responds to more than danger, Saris explained. It responds to emotion, to bonds, to truth. Ilara felt her heart tighten. Bonds? Saris nodded. The silver mark links you to the king. Not to trap you, but to strengthen you both. It shares power between two souls. Ilara looked at Calem with shock. Caleb looked equally surprised. You mean, the mark protects her as well? Yes, Sarah said. You share pieces of each other's strength, and perhaps even pieces of each other's fears. Caleb's eyes softened as he looked at Alara. Then your fear becomes mine, and my burden becomes yours. Alara felt warmth rise in her chest, bright and confusing. Before any of them could speak again, a sudden pulse of light shot across Alara's mark. Saris gasped. The force that entered the kingdom. It is calling to your magic. Alara stepped back. Why? What does it want? Caleb's voice lowered. A rival bloodline, one with magic of its own. They want the prophecy to break me completely, and they believe taking your power will make that possible. Alara's breath shook. Then I am the reason the kingdom is in danger. No, Caleb said firmly, stepping closer. You are the reason we still have a chance to save it. Before she could respond, the mark on her arm flared again, brighter, stronger, glowing like silver fire. Saris's eyes widened. The magic is preparing itself. Something is coming. Alara's heart pounded. What should I do? She whispered. Caleb stepped beside her, his voice steady and calm. You will not face anything alone, he said softly. Not now. Not ever. Her mark glowed brighter at his words, responding not with fear, but with something gentler, something warm, something dangerous. Because it felt like trust. Ending hook. As the palace tower shook with a sudden wave of distant magic, Alara felt the moonfire inside her rise like a tide, and Caleb's presence beside her grew warm, steady, and unbreakably connected. Something powerful was coming for them both. The air grew heavy over the northern dominion. Clouds gathered above the palace, as if the sky itself sensed the tension rising in the land. Wind swept across the towers, carrying a strange, distant sound, a soft hum that felt almost like a whisper. The rival bloodline had arrived. Alara felt it long before the guards announced it. The moonfire in her arm throbbed with light, glowing brighter each time the mysterious presence drew closer to the palace. She stood beside Caleb, at the edge of the courtyard, her breath unsteady. Are you ready? Caleb asked quietly. No, she admitted honestly, but I am with you. His expression softened in a way she had never seen before, full of quiet gratitude. That is enough. They were not alone. Saris stood nearby, watching the horizon with patient eyes. The council members gathered behind them, murmuring their worries. But Caleb and Alara stood at the center, linked by the silver mark glowing on her arm and the faint shimmering pattern appearing on Caleb's wrist, a sign that the bond now flowed both ways. A guard approached them, bowing. Your Majesty, a messenger waits at the gates. He brings a request and a warning. Caleb nodded. Bring him. Moments later, a tall figure wrapped in a cloak stepped into the courtyard. When he lowered his hood, Alara gasped softly. His eyes were bright silver, the same color as her moonfire. He bowed respectfully. Alpha King, Moonfire Bearer. His voice was calm, almost gentle, but his presence carried an energy that made the air tremble. Caleb stepped forward. State your purpose. I am Lorien, the messenger said, heir of the Eastern line. I come from a family who once shared the ancient Moonfire bond. We have sensed the awakening of the power in your kingdom, and we have come to reclaim what was lost. Alara frowned. Reclaim me? Lorien's gaze softened. Not you. The magic inside you. Our line believes the Moonfire belongs to us, but we do not seek conflict. He paused, studying her carefully. We only seek the one who awakened it. Alara stepped closer without meaning to. The magic chose me. Yes, Lorien agreed. And that is what worries my family. For if the Moonfire chose you, it means the prophecy has begun. Caleb's voice grew firm. The prophecy does not decide our fate. We do. Lorien lifted his chin. Then you must prove it. My family has taken something of yours, not out of harm, but to test the strength of your bond. Ilara's heart jumped. They took something? Lorien nodded. A part of your power. A fragment, your moonfire, released when you first arrived at the palace. They hold it now, waiting for you to reclaim it. Ilara felt her mark pulse hard. A missing piece. A piece she had never noticed was gone. Where is it? Calum asked sharply. In the ruins of the first flame, Lorien said. A place older than your throne. Calum's whole posture changed, tense, concerned, alert. That place is unstable. Yes, Lorien replied. And that is why only the moonfire bearer and the king bound to her can enter. Ilara swallowed. So we must go there. Lorien bowed once more. If you wish to face your destiny. Then he turned and left, his cloak swirling like moonlight behind him. Calum closed his eyes for a moment. The ruins of the first flame. I hoped we would never step inside that place again. Ilara touched her glowing mark. I think we must. He nodded slowly. Together. The journey to the ruins was silent and heavy. The land around them changed from calm fields to ancient stone pathways lined with old symbols. Wind carried the smell of earth and old magic. The sky grew dimmer with every mile. Calum walked beside Ilara, his pace matching hers. These ruins, he said softly, were created during the birth of the first kings. Legends say that the first flame of magic rose from this ground. Some call it the heart of all power in the north. Ilara looked around. It feels alive. It is, he said. When they reached the entrance, a shimmering barrier blocked their path, soft silver light woven like a curtain across the stone archway. Ilara reached toward it. The mark on her arm shone brightly. The barrier dissolved. Inside, the ruins glowed with quiet magic. Ancient carvings covered the walls, showing stories of kings, queens, and beings made of light. The air hummed, like distant music. At the center of the chamber lay a pool of silver water. Above it floated a small orb, bright, warm, and pulsing in rhythm with Ilara's mark. That is your missing piece, Calum said. Ilara took a slow step toward it. It feels familiar. It is a part of your soul, he murmured. But as she reached for the orb, a soft tremor shook the ground. A second presence rose from behind the pool. A faint shape made of smoke and silver sparks. Calum stiffened. The rival bloodline left a guardian. Ilara held her breath. What is it? A spirit of old magic, Calum said. It will not harm us, but it will test us. The spirit drifted forward, its form shifting like mist. A calm voice echoed in the chamber. Moonfire bearer. Alpha King. The bond between you has awakened great change. But power without harmony leads only to sorrow. Ilara felt the spirit's energy brush against her chest, warm, gentle, searching. You carry fear, it told her. Fear of the past. Fear of the unknown. Ilara lowered her eyes. And you, it said to Calum, carry guilt, deep and old. Calum's expression tightened. You must free yourselves from these shadows, the spirit whispered. If you wish to reclaim what is lost. Ilara stepped forward slowly. How? Through truth. The spirit said simply. Truth spoken from the heart. Ilara looked at Calum. He looked at her. The chamber grew silent, expectant. Calum spoke first. Ilara, he said gently. I once believed fear kept me strong. I was wrong. Fear only blinded me. I let the curse's voice guide my choices instead of my own. And in doing so, I hurt you. I am sorry. His words were soft but full of emotion he never allowed himself to show. Ilara's throat tightened. I was angry, she admitted. But I also feared you. And I feared myself. I thought the magic inside me would destroy the life I loved. I thought you were my enemy. Calem's eyes warmed. And now? She took a slow breath. Now I see you as someone trying to be better. Someone carrying more pain than I first understood. And the bond? It does not feel like a chain anymore. It feels like strength. Ana. The spirit glowed brighter. The truth frees you, it said. Then the missing moonfire orb drifted gently into Alara's hands. Light filled her chest, warm, soothing, complete. Her entire body softened as the magic returned to her. But something else happened too. The mark on Calem's wrist brightened, glowing with the same silver light. His breath caught, as if feeling the bond deepen within him. When the light faded, the spirit bowed. You have passed the test, it whispered. The balance between you is restored. The spirit dissolved into soft sparks, drifting into the walls like falling stars. Alara turned to Calem, her heart full. The prophecy. It said, you would face your shadow. And I did, Calem said. With you. She smiled, small, gentle, real. And I faced mine. The chamber warmed, its carvings glowing softly. Let us go home, Calem said. Together. When they returned to the palace, the clouds above the kingdom began to part for the first time in many weeks. The air felt light again. The servants greeted them with relief. Saris smiled warmly, seeing the calm in their eyes. Alara stood beside Calem as he addressed the council. The bond between us is not a threat, Calem said proudly. It is our kingdom's new strength. Alara felt the council's eyes on her, curious, respectful, hopeful. Later, as dawn approached, she walked with Calem to the palace balcony. The sky glowed gold, washing the land in soft light. Calem turned to her and lowered his head slightly, not as a king, but as a man honoring another's strength. Alara, he said gently, I cannot change the beginning of our story, but I can offer you the future. Will you stay and help me rebuild what was lost? She looked at him, the king who once brought fear to her world, now standing before her with open honesty. The moonfire mark warmed softly in her arm. Yes, she whispered, I will. As the first light of morning touched them both, the silver bond glowed like a promise not of fate controlling them, but of two souls choosing their own path. Together,